Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really shocking case of injustice all the way back in 18th century France. It's an incredible story, really. A father condemned by rumors and a famous philosopher who decided to fight back with just his pen. So this was the question that completely gripped France. I mean, on the surface, you've got this horrible family tragedy, but when you dig a little deeper, wow, you uncover this powerful story about just how devastating intolerance can be. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in Toulouse, France. And you have to understand, this city was just simmering with religious tension. A private family tragedy is about to become a massive public spectacle. So, at the center of all this is a man named Calas. He's a pretty well-respected merchant, but here's the key. He's a Protestant in a city that's overwhelmingly Catholic. And then in 1761, his entire world just falls apart. He finds his oldest son, Marc-Antoine, dead. And right away, almost instantly, the finger points at the father, Jean Calas. Instead of, looking into other possibilities like suicide, the authorities grabbed onto this motive that came from, well, not from evidence. It came straight from rumors and some really deep-seated religious prejudice. And this story, it just spread like wildfire. He killed him to stop him from becoming Catholic. It was simple, it was terrifying, and it fit perfectly with the anti-Protestant feelings of the time. It didn't even matter if it was true. And yeah, this accusation, it set the stage for a total failure of justice. So of course, the case goes to trial. But let's be clear, what happened next wasn't a search for the truth. Nope. It was a complete legal catastrophe. The whole thing was basically designed to confirm what everyone already believed. To really get what happened to Jean Calas, you have to understand the real villain of this story: religious intolerance. Back in 18th century France, this was a huge destructive force. It shaped everything: laws, public opinion, you name it. And this is the kind of environment where fanaticism just thrives. That blind, unthinking belief that lets prejudice dress itself up and pretend it's justice. So the trial itself, it was an absolute mess, a total breakdown of justice. The court was basically just listening to the mob, not the facts. And the prosecution's big case, it was built on literally nothing but gossip and hearsay. No direct evidence. Zero. Jean Calas kept saying, "I'm innocent," but it was like nobody was even listening. So what was the verdict? Guilty. And the sentence? Well, it was as brutal as it gets. Death by torture. Just think about that. Based on nothing but rumors and prejudice, an innocent man was sentenced to die in one of the most horrible ways imaginable. It's a truly chilling look at how badly the system could fail. And honestly, this is where the story should have ended, right? Just another tragic, forgotten case of injustice. But it didn't, because it just so happened to catch the eye of one of the most famous and frankly, one of the most formidable minds in all of Europe. Yeah, as far as the French courts were concerned, case closed. Done. They believed justice had been served. The family was destroyed, a man was dead, but the system moved on. But for a guy named Voltaire, you've probably heard of him, the famous writer and philosopher, the fight was just getting started. He heard about this case, and he was absolutely horrified. See, for Voltaire, this wasn't just a one-off mistake. He saw it as a symptom of a much bigger problem, a sickness, really. He saw a society poisoned by religious fanaticism and a legal system that had just thrown reason out the window. And for him, that was it. That was his call to action. So that begs the question, right? How on earth does one guy, with basically just a pen and some paper, take on the entire French government? Well, it turns out he had a pretty brilliant game plan. His strategy was genius, really. It had three main parts. First, he became kind of an investigative journalist, digging up all the facts the court just swept under the rug. Second, he wrote his masterpiece, the Treatise on Tolerance, and used the Calas case as the prime example to rally people against this kind of fanaticism. And third, and this was a game changer, he launched what we'd totally call a PR campaign today. He used his fame to get the public fired up all across Europe, basically shaming the authorities until they had to listen. And you know what? It started to work. His relentless campaign, this combination of pure logic and righteous anger, it was turning the tide. Public opinion started shifting, not just in France, but everywhere.
But look, this journey from this horrible injustice to a historic victory, it was a long haul. Jean Calas was executed in 1762. It took another 3 full years of nonstop work from Voltaire and his allies to finally get the case reopened and the verdict thrown out in 1765.
3 whole years. Just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't some quick win. It's an incredible testament to his persistence, and it's also a pretty stark reminder that fixing a terrible injustice is often slow, hard, grinding work.
And the legacy of this case was just huge. I mean, it went way beyond just clearing one man's name. It put a giant spotlight on the deep flaws in the French legal system. It became a banner for Enlightenment ideals, tolerance, justice, human rights. And it absolutely cemented Voltaire's reputation as a champion for anyone being wrongly persecuted.
And that's really why we're still talking about it today. The Calas case isn't just some dusty old story. It's become this powerful symbol. It's a reminder that the fight for justice, for a society that's fair, really depends on people being willing to stand up and shout, no, this is wrong, and to demand reason over prejudice.
Voltaire used what he had, his fame, his pen, his brilliant mind, to literally change the game. He proved that public opinion could be an incredible force for good. And that kind of leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? In our world today, what are the tools we have to fight for that same kind of justice?